Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of What Remains, a fan podcast where we dive into the collection of the Fredericksburg Area Museum. Except today, we're taking a look at a different collection. I'm Kylie.
And I'm Clarissa.
And we have two very special guests today. Joining us from Masonic Lodge No. 4, we have...
I'm Seth.
And I'm Mike.
And we're so excited to have you guys today. It has been a long time coming, and we have a lot to talk about. And now, normally this is the part where we say what the objects are, but we're going to do things a little differently today.
I don't get to ask you, Kylie, what do we have today?
I know, it's so weird. And I think we first need to start by learning about our neighbors here, so let's get right into it. Masonic Lodge No. 4, a staple of the skyline. You all have seen it. It sits on the corner of Princess Anne and Hanover Streets, built by George and Robert Ellis in 1816, whose work also includes one Old Town Hall and Market House. And if you're thinking that date sounds familiar, it's because it is. The museum building and lodge were built at the same time by the same people. I personally think that's really cool. And since that completion around 1816, the lodge has served as the meeting place for members, making it the oldest continually occupied Masonic structure in Virginia. But Freemasonry in Fredericksburg goes back even further. And with that, I think it's only fitting that you two take over. So, my friends, tell us about Lodge No. 4, its history, familiar faces, anything we need to know to place this beautiful building into the timeline of our history. Or, I guess, let's back up for a second. Maybe we should probably start with the basics. What is Freemasonry?
Well, the hardest question first, I see, Kylie. There are many definitions, many very good ones, so we'll try to distill it. Freemasonry means something slightly different to every man who lives it. At its heart, Freemasonry is the oldest and largest fraternal organization in the world. It's dedicated to the moral, intellectual, spiritual, and personal growth of its members. Freemasonry also teaches principles like integrity, charity, humility, brotherly love through symbols, rituals, and allegories drawn from ancient traditions. I think the most succinct definition is a system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. It's a fellowship of learning, and it's also a quiet philosophy of life. It's a way of life and a brotherhood bonded to help make good men better, not for their own sake, but for the good of the community and the world around them. That's my definition. Mike?
So for me, personal definition is it's definitely a profound commitment to the history, to the brotherhood, to personal growth, as you said. But especially in the leadership role that I have at Lodge 4 right now, is George Washington's mother lodge. And I see Freemasonry being a bridge between the past and the present. So we have Masonic traditions, historical figure, and enlightenment that really comes together. And through our efforts right now, preserving the Masonic artifact, supporting the community service, organizing impactful event, I view Freemasonry as a calling to preserve, educate, and serve. So the dedication to Masonic history, particularly related to Fredericksburg Lodge No. 4, embodies a deep reverence for those who came before us, such as George Washington and other notable figures. And the work we do in researching the historical significance of the lodge, cataloging artifact, organizing commemorative events, it really reflects Freemasonry as a living tradition, and it honors the past while we're adapting into a more modern culture and needs. So Freemasonry is also about fostering unity and brotherhood. You touched a little on that one. The focus is to make the lodge a welcoming place for Masons of all backgrounds, reflecting the beliefs, the importance of fraternal bonds. And these bonds extend way beyond the lodge room. It's manifesting in charitable acts like supporting widows, engaging with local outreach initiatives. And at its core, Freemasonry represents self-improvement, virtue, and service. The lodge is a space for personal development, moral reflection, where ancient symbols and rituals resonate with modern challenges. So in leadership roles at the lodge, we strive to balance tradition with progressive thinking and ensure each brother's journey within the craft is enriching and transformative, and it needs to make sense today. So on a broader scale, Freemasonry embodies a lifelong journey of education, reflection, and service. It represents the enduring pursuit of knowledge, moral clarity, and unity. The values of equality, tolerance, and universal brotherhood, inspire a commitment to helping others and help creating a better world. So ultimately, for me, Freemasonry means upholding the legacy of the past while shaping the future and building both the lodge and society at large. It's a continuous journey of striving to make better men, to make good men better, of course, and to make the world a better place for everybody.
I just read a data point the other day. In the United States, Freemasons contribute on average $2.6 million a day to charity.
Wow.
That's amazing. I think what's interesting about what you both were saying is that you have all these things, philosophies, traditions, ceremony, all these things that come cascading into just one place, that it all just comes together and it can turn into so many different things within the community. I think that's super cool. So thank you guys for sharing what you see Freemasonry as and what it is as a whole. Can you tell us a little more about the beginnings in the area in Fredericksburg?
Especially the period that predates the building.
Yeah.
Well, Fredericksburg Lodge 4, the earliest meeting of the lodge for which we have records that still exist, was held on September the 1st, 1752. That was not the first meeting. That's the first meeting we have records for. So Fredericksburg Lodge number 4 is considered one of the few time immemorial lodges. This meaning the lodge cannot trace its original operating authority to a charter from any Grand Lodge. Not yet, anyway. There's extensive research ongoing, and I think we'll have more answers soon, but that's a spoiler alert. There are competing theories that the lodge may have been self-congregated by Masons living in the area, may have been formed by traveling military lodges attached to the British Army or Navy, or possibly merchants. After all, Fredericksburg was an early port city, which is clearly evident in Fredericksburg Lodge's tracing its roots to Freemasonry in Scotland, which is consistent with early Scottish influence in Fredericksburg.
That all makes sense because as long as there's been groups of people have needed to gather, and then all these like-minded people need to find that place. So where were some of these places that they were meeting before the lodge was built?
The location of the lodge's earliest meetings is not stated, but records suggest that one of the earliest meeting places was at John Jones Tavern. Our accounts, and as we've spoken about before, we tend to be a little bit pack rats, and we save a lot of records, a lot of documents, a lot of archives. But those records show that the Masonic Lodge reimbursed the proprietor of John Jones Tavern for broken glassware around 1753. Jones Tavern is believed to be where Washington became a Mason. Another early meeting site was at Charles Julian's Tavern, which stood across the street from Jones's Tavern. That was in 1756, according to our records. Then in 1763, the Masons occupied the old town hall and market house until it was torn down in 1814. I think you both are very familiar with that location.
Yeah, I think we know the place.
Just prior to the American Revolution, the lodge was meeting at Whedon's Tavern. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for those meetings. And then from 1814 to 1816, the lodge was meeting at Rising Sun Tavern, our temple or hall, as we call it. The lodge is the group, and the physical building itself we would refer to as a hall or a temple. We've been meeting there ever since 1816.
And I can't gloss over, you mentioned George Washington. He has a very special tie to Fredericksburg in the lodge, so I think we need to dive into that one a little deeper.
Well, George Washington, as a young man, raised at Ferry Farm, right across the river. His brother-in-law, Colonel Fielding Lewis, we believe, one of the Masons who brought him into Freemasonry. He was 18 or 21 at the time, depending on the calendar. I believe there's some discrepancy.
So it's only for the raising the Master Mason. Mm-hmm. When we turn to the Gregorian calendar, he was 21.
21.
Yes, but he was 18. Yes, correct.
So he was initiated and passed and raised into the lodge, and we think that's, in terms of Washington, significant. That was his transition really from boyhood and being recognized in the town, in the community, in society, and his initiation into to manhood with other prominent men of the day who in the community who were members of the lodge.
And I think there's more we have to talk about with George Washington. And I'm looking at Mike because there's a very special object in the collection that definitely deserves some attention.
The George Washington Masonic Obligation Bible was traveling in 1939 to 1940. We learned this recently to the New York World Fair. So the New York World Fair opened up in the 30th of April, 1939 at Flushing Meadow, Queens, with the theme, The World of Tomorrow. And it's kind of funny because our theme for the year is Builders of Tomorrow. So it actually attracted 60 countries, 33 states, and a lot of federal agencies. And many everyday technology was actually presented on this event. In 1939, television, air conditioning, nylon stockings, and color film was some of the things that was presented to the public. When the fair closed on the 26th of October 1940, it had drawn a whole 44.9 million visitors and a significant attendance in this project. And it was only projected to be cost of $100 million. So everybody was, of course, very stoked with how many people came. So New York invested very heavily into this. They put down $26.7 million. And this was towards the fair's $95 million budget. And thinking about 1940, we were trying to forget the Great Depression. We were heading into a world war. So a lot was rolling on this World Fair. So what they tried to do was they tried to show the future, try to bring in a lot of people and maybe change what we were thinking about at this time. So during the fair, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was actually the one who opened the fair at this time.
A Freemason himself.
A Freemason himself, absolutely correct. And this was, of course, to boost the American morale. You can also quickly gather why the George Washington Bible was there. Of course, to instigate the patriotism. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was not the only Mason who was there. Of course, we have Edward H. Can, who joined as well, going with the Bible to this place. So the organizer hoped with the World War II coming up and the Depression behind us to make a big splash. So they actually made what they called Fredericksburg Day, which was on August 9th. And more than, as I said, 300 people came, 100 of them from Fredericksburg, the rest from the surrounding area. They gathered in the Hall of Science and Education in honor of George Washington and his hometown. And on the display was the Washington Bible. So, Freelance Star actually describes the ceremony that the mayor, W. Marshall King, 36 to 47, he actually traced down the George Washington Bible. And it sounds like he did a lot of research work, but truth is he was actually a Mason in our lodge as well. Furthermore, we have Claude T. Purcell, who was the worshipful master at the lodge at the current time, and he accepted the Bible's travel. And a little bonus information, Claude T. Purcell actually became the next mayor of Fredericksburg the year after Marshall King. So this reminds the attendees that Washington attended school in Fredericksburg. He honed the type of character he was, physical strength, and later he went on to serve our great nation. Speaker emphasized that the Bible symbolized American ideals, and they really hoped that the viewer of this exhibit would reflect on the statements like Washington, Jefferson, Monroe, all good brethren and patriots, and they really hoped to instill this patriotism. So the Bible was on display. It was, of course, on heavy guard like we do today with past masters of Fredericksburg Lodge No. 4. The World Fair Police was attending as well, and it was always under observation while it was on the World Fair. So in preparation of this, the Freelance Star announced the 6th of June in 40 that we have accepted the invitation from Elwood F. Bailey, who was the director of special activities at the fair. And this time, when our Bible traveled, it was only the 5th time in a decade back then. So we really protected this Bible, and it did not travel a whole lot. So that just goes to show that we wanted to share the history, but this was also an event to instill happiness, brotherhood, unity in a chaotic world at this time. A little about the Bible. So Worshipful Master Claude Purcell, he gave the details about the Bible. He told the audience that it was printed in 1668 by John Field of Cambridge, and that the Bible was never removed from the lodge without our masters. He also recalled at then he was only the secretary, but Most Worshipful William Ware had rescued the Bible, our minute book, and of course the Scottish Charter we have from the bank wall during the Civil War, where he escaped to Danville to keep him safe, where he actually returned them. And there's a little snippet saying that the items were damp from the rain, and he apologizing for getting them wet, although he had risked his life to save him. So we definitely owe William Ware big gratitude. So Parcell, he concluded that displaying the Bible at the fair was both an honor and a privilege for Fredericksburg Lodge, and he hoped it would inspire the visitors to reflect on the loyalty of Washington, his patriotism, and other founding statement. These details were also reported in the Freelance Star, illustrating how seriously our lodge hold our Bible in regards and protect it, and our symbolic connection to American history.
That is so cool. And that's such a part of Fredericksburg history that no one talks about it. Fredericksburg was at the World's Fair. Who else gets to say that?
And a day dedicated to it because
exactly.
of the founders who called our home too, which is so cool.
Right, exactly. And that's just one of the many things in the collection. But your collection extends beyond the walls. And maybe I shouldn't call it a collection.
I mean, we've talked about all the cool places that the lodge has met in Fredericksburg, but I think we're missing another key part of, your guys' presence in the city. So you guys want to tell us a little bit about the cemetery?
Well, it's a collection of sorts.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid saying that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so we many folks prominent in Fredericksburg's history and Virginia's history buried just up the street in the cemetery. A few of them to mention: Colonel Gustavus Wallace, General George Whedon of Whedon's Tavern we talked about earlier, America's first millionaire, Basil Gordon. His house was across the river at Falmouth. We'll also have a very prominent woman in colonial history. Some of you may recognize this name if you've ever traveled to Williamsburg. Christiana Campbell, the proprietor of Christiana Campbell's Tavern in Williamsburg. Later in life, she ended up moving to Fredericksburg, and through a family connection, is buried in a cemetery as well. I'm sure I've missed others.
We have like 94, I think, dignitaries over at the cemetery, so we definitely have quite a bit.
It's really a who's who of Fredericksburg over there.
I feel like that could be its own podcast episode of just exploring the ties that cemetery has all over the city.
We do not have Governor Robert Brooke, if anybody was wondering.
That is an important note.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, and for those who are wondering, there is much discussion out there that the former Virginia governor is buried there, but it's not him. It's a different Brooke.
It's just due to how historic myths accidentally happen due to similar names, and it happens all the time. But unfortunately, he is not buried at
so the moral of the
Lodge
story is
Cemetery.
we lost a governor, but
Stay tuned on that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll have an update. But yeah, if we go back to the lodge, this is just who I am as a person. We have to talk more about the collection. And as I said, the lodge has such an extensive and important history, and so much of Fredericksburg's history is what it is because of the ideas that went in and out of that building. Hearing that, everyone can rightfully assume that it's very difficult to pick an object for this episode. So we've already talked about the Bible. It's
about
a collection.
The building.
Yep. And the cemetery. And this collection is so interesting. So there's all these many cool documents and artifacts and paintings to choose from.
And photographs.
Yes. But there's something that neither the lodge nor the museum have in the collection, and that's a cornerstone. Well, technically you guys have one, but we'll get to that. So yes, let's talk cornerstones. And for those who are unfamiliar, these are exactly what they sound like. Traditionally, a cornerstone is the first stone laid in construction, and they also play more of a symbolic role, so representing the foundation upon which everything is built. And in Fredericksburg, there are quite a few hiding in plain sight. So the question is, what does this have to do with you all? What role is the lodge playing in the laying of these stones, and why?
Well, the tradition of the Masonic cornerstone laying ceremony is very much a community event. Cornerstones are an acknowledgement that the building that the cornerstone is being laid for represents something strong, enduring, morally sound, and is of great benefit to the community. In the past, these ceremonies were often accompanied by speeches and by community leaders, local religious leaders, even parades and picnics.
We know Fredericksburg loves a parade.
Yes, they do.
So what goes in the cornerstones?
Well, oftentimes but not always, we hollow out the cornerstone, placing small objects inside like coins, photographs, newspapers, documents, and generally a list of those who erected the building. It's wholly up to the committee in charge's imagination for what goes in.
So we actually have a program for laying the cornerstone. This was at the new East Wing at Mary Washington Hospital. And it's interesting you ask what's in it, because I will definitely tell you. So, placed in the cornerstone on November 2nd, 1960, for the East Wing of Mary Washington Hospital was a copy of the September 18 meeting of the Mary Washington Hospital with the board managers, which authorized the building, signed the contract for the expansion project. Then we have copies of brochures and pamphlets used during the 1957 fundraising campaign for this wing. We have a list of names of the Cornerstone Club members who contributed during the Building Fund campaign, and also a copy of the Cornerstone certificates. Furthermore, we have a list of names of others who contributed funds for this expansion project. We have a copy of construction contract of the U.S. Department of Labor authorized the pay rate schedule. We have Mary Washington Hospital 1959 annual report, which lists the names of the board member and the medical staff members at the time. We have a list of the hospital employees graduated from the School of Nursing, pamphlet paintings of the opening of the third and fourth floor of the West Wing of April 27 and 58. Then we have Mary Washington's Hospital Auxiliary newsletter. We have 1960 Southern Hospital magazine, which featured Mary Washington as its cover story hospital. November 1st, 1960, we have an issue of our Freelance Star newspaper. And then we have Fredericksburg Lodge No. 4 items. And hold on, here's quite a bit. So we have the history of Lodge No. 4. We have a roster of membership of Fredericksburg Lodge No. 4. We have the program of Washington's Masonic birthday celebration, November 4th, 1960. We have a November bulletin, Fredericksburg Lodge No. 4. Then we have a nice 1960 event calendar, also from the lodge, of course. The installation of Demolay Washington's Boyhood Home chapter. We have the grand visitation of the Bethel No. 16 and 32, and we have the Order of Job's Daughters. Installation of Fredericksburg chapter of the Eastern Star, and a program exercising the ceremonial laying of the cornerstone, which I have right here. Would you like to hear something about it?
Of course.
There we go. So, an order of procession with this cornerstone, it's a big event, and no doubt a lot of people will come to these. We have been putting cornerstones all over the place here in Fredericksburg. So a cornerstone ceremony will consist of a procession, and the procession will be quite a amount of people. So let me start here. We have a marshal, a tiler. We have the two stewards, who are the guys on pictures of walking with rods. Master Masons, past masters, and here's the fun thing. We actually have a Masonic quartet who is playing music, since it's public. But a fun fact is we cannot play music during our rituals here in Virginia. Yet we have many brethren who are very famous composers, Mozart, Beethoven, you name it. And but out here we can do it. Then we have three masters with their jewels on, which is the square, the level, and the plum. We have two past masters with vessels containing wine and oil. We have a treasurer secretary. And the secretary at this time was actually the Grand Senior Warden, none other than Right Worshipful Edward H. Gann.
Of course.
Of course, he's there. We have five masters with our orders, five orders of architecture. The Tuscan, the Doric, the Tonic, the Corinthian, and the Composite, which will be carrying some big pillars with them, yeah? We have past master with one large light. We have our senior warden, our junior warden. The Holy Bible square and compasses would be carried by one guy. Then we have two past master with some smaller lights. Our chaplain, because of course, we had to do the benediction. We have the worshipful master of the lodge, who was Thomas J. Higgins Jr. at this time. And then we have the deacons supporting the worshipful masters, a senior and a junior. So that is quite the entourage going down the street to do this ceremony. The ceremony itself will start with a proclamation. This was done by Worshipful Walter N. Chin Jr. And Edward H. Can stand for the exordium, the cornerstone laying with the Masonic honor, the consecration, the proclamation. We have a piece of music. The Grand Lodge orator would then say a few words on it, and then we will finally end it all with the benediction. So that was quite the ordeal.
By my count, I think we've mentioned Edward H. Can 6 times so far. Clarissa, who is Edward H. Can, and what did he mean to Fredericksburg?
I can't take this away from Kylie.
No, go ahead.
Kylie, do it.
No, I've got
Please.
Okay. Well, Edward H. Can was mayor of Fredericksburg, and he played so many different roles in different public services and all of that. And he was a busy, busy man. He was constantly working, constantly arranging things for the community. And that's why you hear his name so much. So you all have stuff in your collection from him. We have stuff in ours. And he was really a champion for Fredericksburg. He loved everything about it and did everything he could for it.
Definitely a foundational figure in our community. And it's really hard to go anywhere without seeing him.
Would you call him a cornerstone of the community?
You have to. But going back to the cornerstone and what was listed, I think it's really fascinating seeing just all of the peoples that were represented in the Mary Washington cornerstone. So not only are you seeing leaders and things like that, but you're also seeing the nursing students. So all of these people that are making the hospital possible. And so obviously the lodge played a huge role in that, but they also included other community members.
Youth, yeah, it brought everyone together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for the hospital. So I think it's worth mentioning that there are some honorable mentions that may sound familiar to everyone that you also played a role in. And one of those is the James Monroe Memorial Library. So
our friends right down the street.
Yeah, exactly. And the original Mary Washington Monument's another one. Mary Washington College at the time, one of the buildings as well. So they are popping up all over town.
I think Find the Cornerstone's a new scavenger hunt here in Fredericksburg.
I think so, because there are a lot of them. And we're not even going to mention them because that's probably going to add another 20 minutes to the podcast.
But I think it's really important, you guys talking about which buildings they're in. They are very important buildings to the community of Fredericksburg, that they are very foundational buildings in education and remembering our past as community centers. And so it's really cool to see how the lodge has been a part of each of those buildings in our community and on our cultural landscape.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, please don't go open the cornerstones. They're there for a reason. And in case of the building comes down, we will definitely open it at that time, but not prior to that, please.
So that's a really great point. Don't try to go open any cornerstones. They are there for a reason. Every once in a while, we do get a little snippet of what is in there and what happens. This is actually from the Fredericksburg Baptist Church. Years and years ago, they were, doing some construction and they uncovered the cornerstone. And I quote, "Church officials uncovered the discolored pieces of money buried in a jelly-like muddy blob of residue in a box planted years ago in the Amelia Street wall of the building." Gross. So I guess I don't know what happened there, but yeah, please don't go open cornerstones. Overall though, it's such an interesting piece of history and such an interesting way to memorialize these buildings, where a lot of times we think the buildings itself is, but then it goes that next step further.
Last time I was in the museum, you've got an exhibit there on the canal. I think there was something about a cornerstone. Did you find that cornerstone?
So that cornerstone is missing, and I think I know why. So
this is why you shouldn't touch cornerstones without asking.
Yeah, so when the Rappahannock navigation system went in, of course, the parade party, all of that was led by the lodge, and they went and they laid a cornerstone. Well, this cornerstone was filled with silver plates, which they advertised very heavily. And it wasn't too long after that it has disappeared, and we have not seen it since.
We have no record of silver plates in any of the other cornerstones.
We do not, but we have some very nice silver jewelry.
And lots of newspapers.
And everything is heavily recorded by cameras.
So anyway, thank you guys so much for sharing the history of the lodge and your archives with us. It's so cool to learn about Fredericksburg and the place that we call home from other organizations who are also dedicated to remembering the past.
And I think we're going to have so much more to talk about in the future. So you all should stay tuned because we'll definitely have to have you all back and we'll find other creative ways to share these collections. So we'll catch you next time on What Remains.